Take your attention inside down to the tip of the tailbone, and we'll do the 9 internal ohms in each energy center as we've been doing for a while. And we'll see what happens. I'll let you know when to change energy centers so you can just stay and work in one place at a time. So we'll begin at the tip of the tailbone, just a little bit in front of that anatomically. Moving to the energy center below the belly button. Completely relaxing your abdomen. Moving to the solar plexus. Moving to the heart center. Now to the throat center. Moving to the third eye. And now as you move your energy above your head, begin to circulate through your system, still using the Om sound. And as you're ready, begin to open your eyes, holding your attention inside your energetic system. As you join together in two realms at once. So, how's it going? Yes.
So, excuse me, since last session, I've been looking at transformation and transcendence, and I brought the question to the Anasa temple, and I'm not sure about what came to me, but it was the image of a caterpillar uh, growing and building a cocoon as the transformation, and then the wings and the flying as the transcendence. And so I asked about transformation. Is it just what happens uh, along the way, uh, whether it's positive or negative? It seems like we're always transforming in some way, um, not necessarily in the way that we would intend. But anyway, I was thinking that you could speak to that. Maybe you would speak to that now.
Well, one of the reasons the topic has come up is that in people who meditate a lot, you can get to a place where you look particularly at a feeling, and the light of your look makes it transform into something that feels like transcendence. But that's not real transformation. That's a kind of spiritual bypass where you get so good at circulating light that you don't actually acknowledge the truth of the feeling and transform the feeling itself. Uh, don't know if this makes any sense, but it's a fairly common bypass in people who have meditated a lot. especially if they've been in a practice where psychology and psychological exploration is not encouraged. And people can appear to transcend feelings without engaging them, actually, because they know where the light is. So that's what brought us to the topic, is that way of considering the difference between transcendence and transformation, because it's easy to confuse the two when you get into spiritual bypass. And that's a little different from what you were talking about with transcendence as the result of transformation, which is what we all want to be working on. But it's very tricky, these two things. And so it requires a lot of self-honesty. And for most of us, at least a couple of years of therapy, and really having help to uncover and heal our own demons. This is really what spiritual practice is facing our own demons and bringing them to health. It's not about anybody else. And if other people get healed along the way, this is a wonderful thing. But our real work is in transforming ourselves, because anything less than that is actually pulling down the whole instead of rising up. So, we look at these various topics from every perspective we can get to, so that we begin to understand. At the same time, in three-dimensional reality, it's possible to just end up pushing things around, because the language itself is such a limitation. It doesn't hold, there's no language to hold spirituality in our field. There's no language about that. And really, our meditation is about cultivating that, not about thinking. So we're saying about four things at the same time. That transcendence is living in spiritual awareness, but it's very easy to be living a brand of transcendence that actually carries a lot of denial in it. And we've seen this quite a bit in our spiritual travels. That unless you seriously work on the personal, it will always be a limitation to you and everybody you meet. And it's not a forever healing. I mean, it's not a healing that takes forever. But it does take some time and effort to engage our demons and really understand them, so we're not contaminating our own process and everybody else's with what we haven't resolved within ourselves. And very often we're blind to what we haven't resolved, which is why a therapist is helpful. And the reason we're blind is because the people who instilled that matrix of belief in us were blind themselves to that, to the false parts of the matrix of belief that they were impressing on us and in us as we came into awareness as children. You know, our peers, our elders, our teachers, everybody who helped form our worldview, for the most part, those people weren't enlightened or even thinking about the possibility of anything like that. And so to not examine our history means that we, in every life our life touches, is contaminated by the things we have yet to resolve. So we were really talking about that in the context of transformation and transcendence. Which is not different from what you were saying. I mean, your experience is quite beautiful and not to be denied. It's the chrysalis of transformation is a necessary part of our own growth process at various points along the way. And in those times, we don't really understand what's coming and what's going, only that we're in a process of change. And so there's nothing to be done. And I think everybody in this room is probably participating in that kind of change on some level at this time. And so there's a certain period of that change where it's just blind. You don't see where you're going. And the thing to do is just be calm and enjoy whatever's happening as much as you can. With as much peace as you can find. Because it's an agitating process to continuously release yourself into the unknown. We hope that's helpful. Yes.
I have a question about uh, the process of confronting your demons. How to identify one's demons? Do they just come up and bite you, or do you have to go looking for them?
Well, usually you find yourself biting somebody else. And that's a pretty good indication that you've unearthed a demon.
Okay.
Because it's what irritates us about others that we have yet to resolve in ourselves. That's the reason we say it like that.
That makes sense. I don't bite many people, but I have a favorite.
Yeah,
And
usually it's the people closest to us, and very often we
yes,
find ourselves biting ourselves. You know, self-hatred is such especially in people who are introspective. You know, self-hatred just it's really an obstructor for many of us.
and that's that's a demon?
Well,
Self-hatred?
of course, I mean, any kind of hatred is demonic.
Okay. Okay. And
See,
all
these,
right, it seems as though I've been letting go of self-hatred, but is that uh, a spiritual bypass?
well,
Because I don't hate the things are that I still need to work on. I don't hate that about myself. I accept that about myself and try to accept it about others. Um, but well,
well, if we keep it about feeling instead of language, it's much easier to talk about. Because if we feel negatively toward ourselves, that's what we're talking about as self-hatred. When we harm ourselves energetically by focusing negative energy on something we just did or experienced and bring ourselves below the level we were emotionally by our self-judgment. That's a lot of words for something that happens in a split second that we do to ourselves. And I think we've all done it and then recoiled from it. And maybe that was the end of it. We didn't look at it further. But those are the experiences we're talking about as self-hatred. And they're split second judgments calls that we make about ourselves, usually. And we're so used to it, we might not even notice. But it damages our capacity to hold finer energies.
okay, that's a lot to let become clearer for me.
And
Allow to become clear.
another way we'll say it, and the reason we use the word demonic is because demons blind us. Anything that is a blind behavior that changes us for the worse, we would call a demon because it's hidden from ourselves.
Would you
Or,
give an example?
well, most of us have habits that we have demonized in ourselves, that we sort of watch ourselves. Um, an example. Well, it's usually a reflexive anger that passes very, very quickly. Like so quickly, we almost don't feel it. And it's happened so many times that we don't notice it. It's just a part of who we are. That kind of mm, blanket judgment of others or self-judgment that demeans both of us in the moment.
It
I know
what in the moment?
in the moment that it happens. Yeah. I'm not
In the
thinking
moment it happens, what it
it demeans, it undermines both people.
means. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know, maybe somebody else has an example that's showing up to them. Nothing's um radiating out of the corners at this moment here. Yeah.
I may have something. Um, it's annoyance, um, a feeling of annoyance towards somebody else or myself. Um, and I have a big one, and I hate to use this name, but Trump engenders that for me. I mean, we don't we mute or turn it off when he comes on the screen because he just brings up so much of what you're talking about. Um, I could even maybe call it hatred, but
Well, that's what he
anyway,
embodies. He embodies
yeah,
it, and he's trying to get everybody into that same wavelength. And
yeah, that's what it seems like,
yeah, he's quite demonic. There's no question about it. He does
right?
not bring up anything good for anybody. And
Right.
he takes advantage of people who haven't worked their demons at all and focuses that energy on who he perceives to be his enemies. And basically, his enemies are anybody who doesn't want to give him all their money. So that's a lot of people
Yeah.
because really he's only interested in his own economic well-being and staying out of jail at this moment. And he perceives in his real life, he perceives anyone who doesn't want to take care of him and pander to him as an enemy. So he's quite demonic. He's the definition of it.
Yes.
And he has
Um,
a completely unexamined life.
yes,
He takes
I'm
no
aware.
responsibility for anything. You know, it's always somebody else. It's all about blame and shame for everybody. His greatest pleasure is to humiliate people who think that they're his friends. I mean,
So
he's
when I'm looking,
very
oh,
strange. Yeah.
yeah. So when I'm looking at him, what one of the things that I became aware of a long time ago was that anything that I see in another, that I criticize might be something that I need to check out in myself.
Yeah, he's
Um,
not the first place I would go to do that work
no, no, he's not.
because, you know,
But he is
anybody who,
he's almost the perfect example of the opposition, if you will, or the term the word Satan, it means adversary, and so it's kind of like um, he's the perfect poster child for the adversary and all its attributes. And but
well,
I
in
just
modern
wonder,
language, we call it malignant narcissism.
yeah, what narcissism?
Malignant narcissism.
Ah, yes. Well, I was accused of being that by my daughter, which
Well,
is very,
yeah, we wouldn't go there with you, of course. And you know, it's not a term to apply lightly, but he has earned it.
Yeah.
And the reason he's earned it is because he takes so much pleasure in the pain of others. He will do anything he can to think of names that humiliate people,
Yeah.
labels. And so, but I don't think it's really appropriate to hold his energy in this space for very long. So I think we can let go of it.
Yeah. Thank you.
He's in our lives now.
Yeah. Well, I'm where I approach it is that he has no substance. I mean, he really is like a phantom of
Well,
the negative.
the best way we look at the whole thing is that he is here as a demonstration of what must be cleared out of humanity before we can move to the next level.
What needs to transform?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because we have to transform any of that in ourselves before the whole human race can move forward. And
And
so
is that possible? Is it possible for humanity in the third dimension to ever do that?
the only way it's possible is if we do it inside ourselves, every single one of us, because that's the only thing we have any control over is ourselves. But and in attempting to do that, that's how we learn compassion,
Yeah.
because it's difficult to do. But this is what we're being called to do, and life is going to call us to do that forever until we accomplish it. We're on a Sisyphusian task until we get it done.
Do you ever get it done?
Well, we have to get it done in ourselves. It's not about anybody else. So it's
No,
about,
I know. And do you ever get it done in yourself?
well, there definitely have been transcendent beings on this earth. And the question is whether they came here that way or not. But really, that's not even the question, because there is no more powerful thing we can do with our life energy than to engage in this quest in ourselves. Nothing. There's nothing else that really has value. It all boils down to what we're doing. Because the purpose of life is love. And for us to become that, which is what we're trying to do, not in a Pollyanna way, not in a superficial kind of pretend way, but in a really deeply allowing way inside ourselves, we are cultivating that sense of gratitude, awe, wonder, everything that children view life with before they've been disillusioned. And we are cultivating that in ourselves. That sense of pure love. And at night, when we go to sleep, we are attempting to wrap ourselves in that energy. And in making it a daily quest and a practice that causes us to go back to the drawing board over and over and over and over as we it looks like self-improvement, but there is a point where magic is engaged. And we discover that we're attracting exactly what it is we need in this process. It's not a one-way process. We can say that from experience. We attract teachers and beings and energies into our life that, well, everyone here has experienced it, that change us quickly, magically, and inspire us to really invest ourselves in the journey. And so it involves a lot of magic and mystery and miracle. And it's not a one-way street. And most of the time we have no idea where our help is coming from. Sometimes it's very obvious and tangible. Most of the time it's, wow, that happened. That was really nice. Whatever, fill in the blank with what that is. But we all experience it quite regularly, or we would have quit a long time ago. But there is an element of taking responsibility that is often required. And so that can feel like drudgery. But then there are these other moments where suddenly a great burden is lifted. And it may be that some light bulb goes off of understanding. And, who's responsible for that? It's not about credit. It's about, just moving forward and living well and loving the people we say we love as well as we can. And having a lot of grace, a lot of room for our own mistakes and the mistakes of those around us. And there is a place for faith, especially in the beginning, before we have a lot of experience of things coming to us that we didn't even know enough to ask for. But once that happens a few times, then it's not so. We know we're engaged in something beyond just us. And the Inasa temple is a perfect example of that, where we can actively engage with that. And it's been given to us so we don't forget what we're engaging.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. What else? Hi.
Hello. Well, this is a big topic this morning, and I'm kind of right in the middle of it myself, of course. Um, but what I wanted to share with you is a kind of a really cool experience I had over the full moon, and especially around the ancestors and such. And it was pretty powerful. Well, I've just had a lot of feelings of processing coming back to me, my mother's death when I was very young, and so I there was just this lovely little space I got into that was very expanded, and I just I had my mother in my mind's eye, and the feeling was there. And there's this little photo album that I recalled. I just was visualizing that, where I was held in this little wash basin and she was embracing me and smiling for the camera. And I wasn't thinking of anything else, but not long after that, I got a very strong impression back. That was the time I went to take care of her when she was in the process of dying, and I didn't know about that she was terminal at that point. I came home and stayed home for, well, maybe a couple months until she passed. But there was this special time we had that was very elevated. It's like space opened up for us. And it was kind of a magical time, and we both felt it. When we went outside, it was like the birds were extra loud, the energy was just beautiful, and we would talk about that. And this impression of that time just came right back to me. And it was like I was thanking her for my taking such good care of me when I was so young. It was so sweet. And then this impression that how much I took care, how much it meant for her. And both of us, that's at that time when she was dying. And I just sat with that for the longest time, just amazed, but just in the silence and honoring that. It was so, so beautiful. So I wanted to share that.
Yeah, we would say that you were intuitively guided to hold space for her,
Oh,
and that in your holding space, she was able to hold space for both of you in her passing, because she didn't want to share her pain with you. And so she ended up sharing something much more evolved. It's so
yeah,
beautiful what you gave each other.
yes. And honestly, I was reminded through the course of all this that, but that really brought it forward again in just that time, that moment. And yeah, so I wanted to share that. I thought that was pretty special.
Yeah, that is really special. And, it's a way of honoring you both, that memory.
It
So
really,
fantastic.
it
Yes.
really is. Yeah. So,
Wow.
and it settled me out inside as far as things not feeling complete or whatever my angst was, uh, um, in myself, just focusing on other things about that time, and with it relating to me. But so kind of like, well, here it is, this this space opening up, and that's what this is about. And so
Thank
that's
you for
the
sharing that. It's so beautiful.
Oh, I thank you. I haven't told too many people, maybe two. And it was people I really didn't know that well, who were really open people. So it just is stuck with me. It's like, wow, okay, there we are. There's life
Yeah,
continuing on.
that's a good place to bookmark and come back to whenever you need to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you. But a great discussion this morning, because I am going through all those in changes in raw spots in looking at myself, and actually started therapy for the first time. So it's a new experience for me, but it's very timely, and I'm just doing a lot of talking with a lot of tears.
Well, that this came up is just grace. I mean, the whole experience is a demonstration of that word.
Yeah, and I know my father had to run his business, and my brother couldn't face my mother. I mean, it was too much for him. And he loved her dearly, but so so she called me her guardian angel when I first showed up at the house, and it went on from there. So
How beautiful.
Yeah.
And it was pure intuition. You were too young to have any idea of what was really going on. You just went with it.
Yeah, wasn't planned.
Yeah.
The first
And
thing
whatever you did have planned, it just wasn't important anymore.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
How beautiful.
The first thing I was confronted with was it was time to go to bed, and my dad was saying, "Okay, Kay, take your wig off now." And she's like, "Whoa." And she'd had chemo and such, and so that, anyway, very, very amazing. It's wonderful. Yeah. So,
yeah. How beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we have been thinking a lot about ancestors this week. And really the greatest understanding that's come is that, and we may have said this last week, we're having trouble keeping sequence of time. So if you've heard this before, just let us know and we'll stop. But ancestors are not just our linear concept of who came before, but there's a nonlinear perspective of those who have transcended everything that are definitely connected to us. And those in all stages of that being, becoming, which also is nonlinear. But there is this connection to the whole that we are worshiping the ancestors and reconnecting ourselves to the most profound healing possible through the ancestors. And so it's not just this idea of forgiveness or coming to peace with. It's an idea that we are held and serving and being served at the same time as we engage in this process of evolution. That it's much bigger than our linear capacity to imagine. And our access to all levels of it is freely available. And our access to healing in it is also freely available. And so it's a time to open to a different level of acceptance about the process of life itself, which of course includes death and the recycling of life force through all forms of beingness, and that we're part of all of it. And have experienced many, many dimensions of it beyond this particular expression. And so that when we can open to all of that in our meditation, a different experience of the source of all of that becomes available. The source of the all that is, which is what we're made of. And we are completely special, and at the same time, a speck of dust. In the big picture. And everything in between, there is no separation except the one that we make in our brains to keep our being from overwhelmed by what's available. So we have most of what's available dumbed down to a layer of to a level of stimulation that we find bearable. So as we are our own salvation, we are also our own limitation and everything else. And there's so much beauty in just allowing it all to be exactly as it is and opening to that. And there's a way in which, instead of feeling overstimulated, we can allow ourselves to be and to experience what is. And our relationship to it. And this allowing grants us deeper, ever deepening access to creative potential itself. And we would say that as your mother was dying and that allowing came into the field, the experience of creative potential in witnessing the manifestation of nature and the opening to it, and this was all about what we're talking about as allowing. When time and space stop and there's just openness. Doesn't exactly stop, it just opens. What else? Mhm.
Well, that was beautiful what you're talking about. And so what it says to me is just don't complicate it. I mean, we have to go through some process about it. But I just love how you explained that. It was just so beautiful and opened the field. So I just made a lot of sense to me in an odd way.
You know, what we're seeing from astrology is that we're dealt a hand. And as our understanding of that hand, what we've been dealt, as that grows, we have no capacity to change what we've been dealt. But when we change who we are, we change our relationship to it. And what could have been, repetitive harshness becomes softer and softer engagement because we are no longer fighting. We come to understand that harshness is a guide to how to be with capital letters. Instead of fighting, we allow. And then it changes to something totally unexpected,
Mm-hmm.
which is a gift.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as we fight, which doesn't mean that there aren't times and places to do battle. But we learn, it's a lot of it's trial and error.
Really helpful. Thank you.
And we know from experience that when we have a tendency to fight is usually the time we should stop and recalibrate. And sometimes we can and sometimes we can't, and that's okay. We do it when we can. And the road just gets wider and wider for ourselves and everybody else. And as our capacity to recognize the demonic within ourselves grows, so does our recognition of the process as much bigger than we imagined. But we still have a role. And it's that balance between engaging and allowing, and engaging and allowing. Until we're doing both at the same time and being instructed on how and when by life itself. And that's what alignment is. And sometimes it just feels so good to take a breath. And then to allow life to breathe us. What else? Mhm.
Hi, this has been
Hi.
hi, hi, y'all. This has been a really wonderful conversation. Thank you.
Mhm. You're so welcome. We feel same.
Mm. I'm about to go down to visit a friend whose spouse just passed away a couple weeks ago,
Mm.
and he kind of is vacillating from, I don't know, I guess denial maybe, and into like complete grief and emotional, just havoc. And I know that really all I have to do is just be there, you know. Um, I don't really have a task to do, but um, but I also know that I've had a lot of people pass in my life. Not a lot, but enough, and people and pets and things. And I haven't I haven't ever had that wonderful experience that Nancy has had, and except once with one of my pets. I either haven't been there while they're passing, or they're already gone before they pass, or I was too young when my father passed and my best friend passed. I mean, yeah, I haven't ever had that wonderful experience um, to kind of maybe share with him would be wonderful, you know, to give him a gift of that kind of experience would be so good. I don't know if you have any words on that.
Well, we think you should just rely on your own intuition and you have more experience than you think with the beauty of transition and allowing the complete sadness at the same time. You know, your job is to hold space and allow it to transform at its own pace. But in holding space, you allow whatever needs to happen to be present. And not having an agenda is perfect. And being open to new experience is also perfect. Whenever we assume, especially in a situation like this, we're in trouble. So you have exactly the right feeling about it. Just allow it to be, and you will see what needs to be done. It may be that just, helping with the household chores is what's needed. But it may be that allowing him to do what needs to be done so he can feel worthwhile. I mean, you never know. And so it's just being present without any particular desire of your own that will allow it to just flow the way it's supposed to. And most of what happens around dying and death is completely mundane. And the magic just appears in the moments it decides to. And we know you felt it and been in touch with it over and over and over. So that's not a new experience for you or one that's eluded you. Maybe in the particular context of someone dying, you haven't felt that magic. But it's around you always, and you have tuned into it. I mean, your whole life was about tuning to it and moving with it. So that's not an unfamiliar experience for you. Yeah. And so it's similar to that flow that you've always tuned to in your body. It's similar to that, just and dancing with whatever the event is. And you know how to do that very, very well. So don't sell yourself short.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a tendency to I don't know, to try when people have a hurt something in my space, I try to make them feel better. And I think I really have to resist that in a way and let them be hurt, right?
It just depends. It depends on how they're hurt and what they need. And very often they can't say it, and sometimes they can. It's just being present, which you know how to do very, very well. And a lot of it has to do with being present to ourselves, so we know whether we're trying to serve ourselves or the other person. It's very easy in the open space to put ourselves in there, but just allow the other person to be there. Allow them to break the silence. Or not. And in that potency of silence can be, an encyclopedia of experience. So holding space is allowing. And that's what you'll be doing. Allowing them to have their own experience, whatever that is. So let's sit for a few minutes before we go. Thank you so much for being here today. It's really, really extraordinary time. Till we meet again.